Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Una McCormack, who is a British science fiction writer. And she has written many Star Trek books of all different flavors of Star Trek. She's written books on Star Trek, Doctor Who, Blake Seven, and she's written some short fiction, and also she has written some of her own books, science fiction books. And for readers unfamiliar with your work, I've already just kind of mentioned a lot of the things that you've written. How would you describe what you write?
Oh, so I guess in the old days we used to call it TV tie-in fiction, so books that would tie in with the show. You tend to hear it called franchise fiction now a little bit more. I think that's a much more sort of marketing and corporate term. But I guess TV tie-ins or franchise fiction, before I be professionalized, I was an old school fan fiction writer. So.
Okay, great. And what can readers expect from your latest book?
Okay, my latest book is called Star Trek Discovery Wonderlands, and I don't know how well people know the show. If they haven't yet seen the third season of Discovery, there's a little spoiler warning here. So stop listening for a bit if you don't want to be spoiled for that. So in the most recent season of Discovery, Michael Burnham has leapt into the future, and we realise that she spent a year there before her friends on the ship have on Discovery come and find her. And my book is about that missing year, what Burnham does in her lost year. So she's all by herself. She's literally arrived just in a spacesuit. She's got nothing else. She lands up pretty much on the head of a character called Cleveland Booker, or Book, who has a very fine cat. And we spend a bit of time watching Michael's adventures in this new world, and learning to live in a very, very different society from the one that she's used to. So that's my current book. I think of it as a sort of extra season. You're getting a sort of extra season of Star Trek Discovery tucked in between the first 2 or 3 episodes. So hopefully people will enjoy it.
Were you assigned these books, or did you decide that this is what you were going to write?
So they very much come to me and ask me to do a specific book. So in this case, I think they knew that they wanted a book that would fit into this quite clear gap in the season. So I've done lots of Star Trek books than before. Did the first spin-off from Star Trek Picard, Last Best Hope. So they're quite familiar with me, and I've got a good sort of working relationship with them. So they had a book about Burnham, and knew exactly where they wanted it to be set. But that was pretty much the brief. We sort of we knew when it was going to be set. We knew what it had to cover in broad terms. But apart from that, it was working up the plot. Handful of characters that we knew as well, but plenty of scope to invent people of my own. I think I managed to spin whole chapters out of a sort of single line in the script and that kind of thing. Classic fan fiction writer's trick. So I've got one line. I'm going to get 12,000 words out of that.
Okay, so what was the inspiration for your latest book, and what were the steps that you took to bring it from initial inspiration to the finished book?
Yeah, so when you're doing a book like this, when the show is in production, and Star Trek obviously is, there's lots of Star Trek in production at the moment. You're working quite closely with people who are writing the show. So in this case, I've been working very closely with a person in the writers' room called Kirsten Beyer, who's the co-creator of Picard and has been in the writers' room on Discovery and so forth. And Kirsten used to be a Star Trek novelist herself till very recently. She wrote a lot of the Voyager novels. So she's very familiar with how the books can sort of enrich your viewing experience. So generally what happens is we sort of have a long transatlantic call, which is got to get the times right. I'm here in the UK, she's in America, and we break the story together. Can we do this, can we do that? Now, because of whether this book slots, we were thinking of it as a sort of mini season. I shaped the book like that. So I gave it a kind of season arc. So you've got a sort of opening two-parter and a lively bit in the middle, and then a kind of wham bang explodey two-parter at the end. But then in between, I was sort of slotting in individual episodes. And Burnham in the book is exploring a world far in the future where the Federation has gone, Starfleet has gone. So she's seeing different versions of what survived in the various worlds that she visits. So that's how the book was shaped. We sort of thought of it as a little mini season, and then shaped the book according to that. And hopefully, people enjoy it.
Oh, wonderful. So what kind of research went into writing this book? And what cool facts and findings didn't make it into the book, but you love discovering?
Well, the brilliant thing about writing science fiction is that you can kind of make stuff up as you're going along. I'm very lazy about researching. In my previous life, I was an academic. I was a sociologist, so I had enough of research. So I got into a job and a genre that I could sort of make things up as I go along. But nothing is wasted. I read a great deal, and I often find that things that I've read maybe 10 or 12 years ago suddenly bubble up to the surface. So one chapter in this book, for example, I'd got very interested in the idea of generation ships a while ago. These ships that takes so long to travel from one planet to another that whole generations can live through that voyage without ever seeing a world. And one of the chapters is set on one of those. So that's one thing that comes to mind. But no, I chose science fiction because I didn't want to do any, space opera. Now, of course, for Star Trek, there's lots and lots of kind of minutiae, that you don't want to get wrong. And there are great websites out there. There's a fantastic resource called Memory Alpha, which I use extensively. And I don't feel too bad about using that because I was Michael Chabon, obviously the excellent novelist and another co-creator of Picard, writer on Picard, did an AMA on Reddit last night, and he said he used Memory Alpha. So I don't feel too bad. But that's the encyclopedia of Star Trek, I guess.
Okay, and could you tell me a little bit about your Doctor Who books?
Oh yes, right. Well, I've done a handful of Doctor Who novels. I've also done a lot of audio drama based on Doctor Who. There's an audio producer called Big Finish who have the license to produce Doctor Who drama, audio drama. So I've done quite a few audio dramas for them. And I think I've probably done maybe 4 or 5 Doctor Who novels. The nice thing about them is that since the show came back on air, they're pitched sort of, I guess, what you call middle grade. I think it would be the US version. It's maybe 8 to 14, so they're quite short. Lots of fun, lots of color, very very like this show as it is now, and remind me a lot of the Doctor Who novels that I was reading as a kid, written by Terence Dicks. Those very very short ones that I was reading as a kid in the library. So let's see, I think I've done 4 or 5, a couple with Matt Smith, King's Dragon and the Way Through the Woods. There's an Arthurian inflected one, which is a Peter Capaldi one, called Royal Blood. And then the most recent one was part of a very big event that was going on during lockdown. Whilst they couldn't make Doctor Who because we were all in lockdown, they produced a great deal of material under the banner Time Lord Victorious. And there was a lot of stuff going on there. There were 2 novels which form a little duology, and mine was the second of those. That's called All Flesh is Grass. But there was tons of other stuff as well under this Time Lord Victorious banner. There were audio plays, there were comic strips. I think originally they had a plan to do an escape room, but of course that was sort of held. I think that's coming in future. So that was my most recent Doctor Who novel. Doctor Who writers like to kind of tick off which doctors they've done. I'm doing pretty well. So got a couple more to go, but we're getting there.
A little hard to remember now.
Yeah, just I'm not done.
Great. Um, okay. And so, what was the biggest challenge in writing and putting out your newest book, which is the Star
Oh,
Trek book?
I'll be completely honest. The biggest challenge was that we were in lockdown and I was homeschooling. So it's been a pretty tricky. Everyone's had this experience, but yeah, quite a lot of that is in the book. I think Burnham is a long way from home. She doesn't know when she's going to see her friends again. She's in a little ship most of the time. So there's quite a lot of lockdown in the book, and I think that really was the big challenge, finding the time and the energy under these really weird conditions. I think everyone can sympathise with that. And I was when I opened the book again recently, I reread it to be able to do sort of interviews like this. I'm actually really pleased with how it came out. I thought I'm going to open it. It's going to look. You'll see how tired I was and how stressed and weird it was. But actually, it's come out a lot better than I hoped, and I'm actually really pleased with it. So that's good.
That's great. So, what character did you love or hate the most while you were writing it, and why?
Oh, so there's I guess the book is centered around three characters. So you got Michael Burnham, who is the lead of Star Trek Discovery. We've got this new character called Book, Cleveland Booker, who's introduced in this season, and he and Burnham have got a sort of Beatrice and Benedict thing going on. Yeah, it's kind of love hate thing, and they really spark off each other. So they were enormous fun to write. Book also has an amazing cat called Grudge, which was also a great character to write, and kind of, they're both playing for her affections. But there was a third character. They kind of form a trio, these three, and it was a character who only appeared on screen very briefly called Sahil. And he's been waiting for years for a Federation officer to arrive, Starfleet officer to arrive, and Burnham does arrive. But on screen, he's not on screen very much in the show, but it's such a warm and humane performance that everybody really loved him, and it was he was such an important part of the book. It was great to kind of explore this character's backstory, and give him more history and life than they were able to have enough time for on screen. So that central trio were enormous fun to write, and the cat.
And the cat, yes, of course.
Always the cat.
Yes. So, what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Well, I've been very busy. So coming up next is the Autobiography of Mr Spock. So these are a great range of books where the conceit is that the character has written their memoirs, and you, the author, are the editor. So I did one of these last year for Catherine Janeway, the Autobiography of Catherine Janeway, and then we thought, so what could be harder than that? Let's try Spock. So it's Spock's memoirs, yes, and now he's been a character in Discovery. It's really quite complicated. So I've just finished that. We're just doing the final touches to that, which will be lovely. They're nice books. They have specially commissioned artwork as well. So we've got some beautiful artwork in the Janeway book and in this one. And then after that, my next book will be slightly new ground for me, but a real wish list. A novel based on Firefly, which people might remember, a very short-lived science fiction show. And then a movie called Serenity. And I've wanted to do a book based on that for absolutely ages. So a real wish list for me. And that's going to be coming later in the year. So that's a bit more Star Trek and something new, some Firefly is coming next.
Wonderful. Okay, now I've got questions for you about being a writer. What's your favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
Oh, it's just huge fun, isn't it? I mean, you get to sort of make stuff up all day. You almost can't believe it's a real job, I suppose. So you think, gosh, and like I say, I was from a sort of fan fiction background, so I was making up stories and doing that, and then people said, okay, we'll give you money for that. Oh, that's great. I'll stop me having to get a proper job, won't it? So that is by far the best. People complain it can be quite lonely, and your back gets very sore, and the deadlines are quite tight. But really, it's a lark, isn't it?
Okay. And what do you think the most challenging part of the writing process is, and how do you overcome that?
Lower back pain, sitting at the desk all day. I guess deadlines can be very tight, particularly in this kind of genre, and that's just a question of putting the hours in. That's sitting down, and there really is. There's no answer to that other than to sit down and write. And I think anyone listening who's thinking, "Well, I'd like to write, but I can't find the time," you have to find that time and kind of plug away. You spend a lot of time by yourself, which that's okay. I'm fairly introverted, fairly solitary, but sometimes you think, oh, I could. I've sort of been by myself for a few days at a time now. I had some company other than my immediate family, but it's yeah. I think tight deadlines and worrying that perhaps you won't quite meet that, but you usually do.
Hmm. So, what has been your favorite adventure in your writing career?
Oh, adventure. Uh, I guess I'm not really a very adventurous type. That's why I'm a fiction writer. I guess the nicest time I've had was just before we went into lockdown. So last February, I was out in LA at a Doctor Who convention, having a brilliant time. It's incredible. Then within 3 weeks, so I kind of couldn't go beyond my front door very much. So I guess that was a bit of an adventure to go off to LA and visit LA for the first time, and go to the Getty Center and that kind of thing. So I guess I became a writer because I wanted to have imaginary adventures, but it's nice to go to conventions and things.
Great. So, what is the greatest lesson you've learned so far in your writing career?
Oh, put the hours in. Uh, so sit and write. For anybody who's sort of working on their first novel, um, I used to teach creative writing at university level, and the first thing I would always try and get across to students is um, your writing. You have to be able to live with it being quite not being how you like it, quite bad actually for a lot of the time. So you have to just keep producing material, and slowly things start to kind of click together like a jigsaw, and you get into the project and things start to become smoother and you become more fluent. So I think learning not to worry when you're not pleased with what's coming down, but just to kind of keep plugging and produce material, and then you get into kind of the flow. Uh, and I guess from the professional side, if you think you're going to miss a deadline, uh, get your editor in the loop and say, okay, we need to kind of, I need a couple more days here. Something's come up, or, I've just had a vaccination and I've been asleep for 2 days. Yeah, that kind of thing. And people really, really bend over backwards to try and help. So just be upfront if you think there's going to be delays. Ideally, meet the deadline. But if there's going to be problems, then try and negotiate something. So I think just keep writing and keep people in the loop.
So, are you a teacher also now? Do you,
Not anymore. I taught creative writing for about almost 10 years, but I gave up my day job about 2 years ago, so 2 or 3 years ago, to write full time. So not any longer. I do some mentoring of projects and that kind of thing.
okay. So, what piece of advice would you want to share with other writers aside from what you just said, or is there anything else?
Oh, that really is the big one. I think that's that learn to plug on through and not worry if the work isn't how you like it, and don't get lost in the. I think don't get lost in the ideal book in your head. Work with the book that's emerging as you're writing it. Those would sort of be the big ones.
Okay. And are there any groups, clubs, or organizations that you'd recommend to other writers that might have helped you in your career?
So one thing that I know that students of mine have really enjoyed is it's an online event that runs every year. It's been running for at least 10 or 15 years now. It's called National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo, and every November people sort of commit to writing 50,000 words. And some of my students have done this to really good effect. I think it's really made them think about planning in advance, getting you can work up an outline and sort of work along with that. Finding time in the day to write. Living with that experience of stuff not being very good, and also pushing a book to completion. And I think that's the other thing I'd say as well. Always try and finish what you're writing. Don't abandon something. It doesn't have to be in great shape. It can, be in very rough form, but it's a physical thing, and then you can work on revising it and expanding it and fixing all the problems. So people who would like to sort of have a go at writing something very quickly, I'd say have a look at National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo, NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month.
Great. Okay, thank you. Now we have questions about you as a person. What is one thing that most people don't realize about you?
Probably that I'm very introverted. I think I come across as quite sociable. I'm not.
If I had $1 for every writer that has told me that.
Yeah, it's a particular type, isn't it? I think you've sort of,
Yep, it is.
I think of Linus in Peanuts. I love mankind. It's people I can't stand.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many writers are introverted or are shy or have a really hard time being in groups of people. It's amazing. And I guess that's why they like to write, because they're by themselves.
By themselves with the fictional people.
Yes. My next question is, what question do you wish interviewers would ask you? And what would your answer be?
Interviewers are usually really good at coming up with things that I haven't thought of, and I ramble a lot. So chances are, if I have something to say, I'll say it.
Okay, sounds good. If you think of something, just let me know.
I'll think of something.
Okay. So what is or are your passions when you're not writing, and how do you make time for your hobbies or things that you love?
I'm pretty much a one-trick pony. If I'm not writing, then I'm reading, and I somehow find a bit of time to do that. I got addicted to Pokemon Go during lockdown as well. So that's the thing. I get very absorbed in kind of puzzle games, and need to kind of complete them and work them out. And I think it's a sort of strategizing game that makes me kind of plan things, and it exercises different bits of my head from strategizing books. And then I have a 7-year-old child, so we're very busy doing lots of stuff like arts and crafts, which I love doing. I'm from a family of primary school teachers, so lots of sort of making stuff out of boxes and double-sided sticky tape and bits of glue. So a lot of that goes on, and I'm quite a bad knitter as well. So all these things, and I usual things. I love film, I love TV, and I love theatre when I get the chance. Haven't had a chance to do that for a while.
Great. And what are some of your writing related hobbies, crafts, or addictions?
What sort of thing? As
I guess reading. Reading, I guess, would be one.
Reading. I guess I'm not really. I don't really collect books because I'm quite cheap. But I buy a lot of books, but they're generally kind of paperbacks. I don't sort of curate in that way. I just like having lots of books nearby. So I guess reading and buying a lot of books, some of which I read.
Okay.
Dusting my books.
So what does your writing space look like, and what do you need to have around you while writing or editing?
I'm quite minimalist, not least because when we went into lockdown, we're in a 2-bedroom flat, so my partner and I are sharing a desk space, so we keep it almost completely bare, so one of us can use it in the morning, the other can use it in the afternoon. So directly in front of me, I've got a desk fan, three potted cacti, and a print of Cambridge College that my partner went to. And then behind me, you can see some Lego and a variety of pictures that our daughter has sort of created or had a hand in. So it's quite minimalist because it's shared. But I think that's quite good because I'm just not I think of writing projects as a process of kind of finessing and streamlining. So I don't like to have a lot of clutter around. I like to have it sort of smoothing down. So it works quite well.
Are there any drinks or food that you need to have with you, like coffee or?
I'd like all writers. I sort of drink a couple of cups of coffee to get me going in the morning. But yeah, just some water, and then just focus for 2-3 hours. Do as much as I can, and then I think that's about the limit of what you can do. Sort of 2 or 3 hours of quite focused stuff, and then mooching around the rest of the day, play Pokemon Go.
Okay. When you're writing, do you prefer silence or music or other?
Yeah, no, I can't listen to music. My experience is that people's imaginative space tends to fall into a sort of that they either tend to be more visually or more auditory orientated, and I very much have a kind of auditory imagination, which means that I can't I certainly can't listen to music with I can't listen to songs with lyrics because it interferes with how I'm processing language. I can listen to classical music, and one thing I could listen to was cafe chatter. I could that sort of acted as white noise back when you could go into cafes. They're just opening up again over here, so maybe I'll do a bit of that again soon.
Okay. And writers often have furry or feathered or not otherwise non-human companions to help them through their work. And do you have any? And what do you have? And do they help you or hinder you with your writing?
Oh, I don't have any cats or dogs or anything like that. Sadly, allergies preclude that. I have a variety of sort of small, like any Doctor Who or Star Trek fan. Everybody's got a bunch of sort of little figurines and stuff. So there are various bits and pieces of that around. I've got a little. I should have brought him along. I should have thought of that. I've got a character from Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, called Garrick, who's one of my favorite characters. I've got a little kind of 4-inch high figure of him who sort of travels around with me, and I take pictures and tweet them, which people really enjoy, and I really enjoy it. So I guess he's more like a familiar or an eminence grise than a companion, though.
Great. And I just have two more questions for you. Where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And and I'm going to put a plug in like I do for every video. You can order any of Una's books that we can get a hold of. We can find them for you at Annie's Bookstop of Worcester by excuse me, calling us at 508-796-5613, or you can send us email at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com. And where else could people find your books?
Well, in the usual outlets, I guess they're sort of they're mass market books, so that they should be quite easy to find. If people are in the UK, there's a great website called bookshop.org.uk, which is a kind of it's a sort of portal for a lot of independent booksellers in the UK. So that's a great place to buy books if you're trying to get away from the big online vendors. So support independence and try to source from them whenever you can. So that would be so if you're in the US, then obviously from Annie's. If you're in the UK, then have a look at bookshop.org.uk and source through that. Otherwise, it's kind of the big A's.
Okay. And how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Oh, well, mostly people can find me being grumpy on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is just my name. It's at Una McCormack, so nothing tricky there. And mostly I'm grumping about politics, or I just did a binge watch of Star Trek Enterprise, so there's quite a lot of Star Trek content, so people like that, and my exploits in the world of Pokemon Go.
Great. Okay, sounds good. And you have a website, yes?
I do, yes. unamccormack.co.uk, and that's a way that people maybe can find out about the audio dramas and also some of my academic works. I have a past life as an academic, so various collections of essays on writers like Lois McMaster Bujold, who some of your science fiction readers might know. So lots of stuff on there.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And when COVID is over, possibly if you ever get over to the United States, maybe you'll visit us at Annie's.
Very much hoping to get to to the East Coast again. Yeah, very much.
That would be wonderful. And come to Boston for Boscone. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be good fun. Yeah, it's a long time since I've been to Boston, but I'd love to come again.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And
Thank you for having me.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.